Thank you, everybody, for coming to the virtual alumni speaker series. I would like to welcome you. My name is Shauna Lawson. I'm the Assistant Director for Alumni Relations and Annual Giving at UW Tacoma. We'll go ahead and start with the Share the Land acknowledgement. We recognize that all of us at UW Tacoma learn, live, and work on or near the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people. In particular, we are situated on the traditional territory of the Puyallup. As people on this occupied territory, we have a responsibility to acknowledge the land, the ancestors who have cared for this land since time immemorial, and all our indigenous connections today. We also have the responsibility to acknowledge the histories of dispossession and forced removal that have allowed for the growth and survival of this institution. In light of this history, let us take active efforts to partner with our indigenous community members and neighbors as we continue our work together as a community of learners, leaders, and educators. Thank you. Amen. And so we ask that you remain muted during the interview portion of this program. And after the interview, if there's time, we will take questions via the chat. You can also come off of mute. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please note that in the chat and we will assist you. I will now turn this over to our interviewer. Our interviewer is Jason Glenn. He's a communications major at UW Tacoma. He is also the fiction editor for Tahoma West Literary Arts Magazine of UW Tacoma. So now I turn it over to you, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. Our alumni speaker tonight is Ngoma Moses Howard. Now, Ngoma is an educator, administrator, and community engagement advocate who lives in Puyallup, Washington. He was born in Uganda, Africa, and came to Tacoma when he was 8 years old. A Lincoln High School alum, he earned his bachelor's degree at University of Washington, Tacoma, master's degree in teaching at City University, and his principal certification at Seattle Pacific University. Ngoma also holds several IT certifications, including CompTIA A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. A 25-year educator and school administrator, Ngoma was an assistant principal in Tacoma at First Creek Middle School, Jenny Reed, and Blix Elementary Schools. He also served as a key board member of the Tacoma Principals Association from 2017 to 2018. He currently teaches math and social studies at Edgemont Junior High School in Edgewood. He is a frequent and key contributor to the district's diversity committee, where he strives to bridge the equity and access gap to marginalized students of color in the community. Ngoma has also contributed to Andre Mountain's book, Principles Don't Walk on Water. Mr. Howard's foreword in the book provides one of the most realistic looks at the challenge of being an educational activist. Ngoma is an educator who uses his profession to make a positive impact on students and communities. His work is informed by the daily challenges rooted in his experience of leading a school and teaching in a suburban setting and the African American experience. So without further ado, thank you so much, Ngoma, for joining us this evening.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Absolutely.
So my first few questions pertain to working for the Puyallup School District. So what is your current role and what do you do there?
Well, before I go into that question, I just really want to acknowledge a few people, which is a short list of a long people. And I want to start by acknowledging Shauna. She's done a lot to keep me in the fold and keep me embraced in the University of Washington, Tacoma. And I really appreciate her for that. She continues to help me to expand my boundaries by keeping me included into what's going on at University of Washington, Tacoma, which I appreciate her for that very much. I also want to really give a special shout out to some founding faculty members that really impacted my life. And so some of you will recognize some of the names, some of you won't. There's Kathy Casaba, there's Dr. Bacho, there's Michael Colton, David Wood, David Morris, Dr. Anthony DaCosta, Michael Honey, and Julie Nicoletta. and just a lot of Lisa Rankin. So a lot of people, there are a lot more whose names I did not say, but those are some of the people that really got University of Washington Tacoma where it is today. And those were people that really were some of the foundations as it relates to University of Washington Tacoma. And I'm proud to have had those people help me on my journey. And I also want to recognize my parents, Moses Leon Howard, Immaculate Howard, and my brothers and sisters who, and I get verklempt just even thinking about my family and their contributions to who I am and how I've been. So Hadari, Morningside, Balori, Ruganzu, my children, Cameron, Sydney, Maya, Ralph, Katita, just so many people in my family. I want to acknowledge them because they are an important part of where we are. Jaden, Simone, my nieces, nephews. So yes, I want to acknowledge all those folks. And back to your question again, please.
No worries. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
So what is your current role in the Puyallup School District and what do you do there?
Yeah, so currently I teach math and social studies in Puyallup School District at Edgemont Junior High. Teach honors math, core math, honors social studies, core social studies, and also I also teach an intervention math as well, depending on whether it's 7th grade or 8th grade, depending on how they need me.
Okay. How do you implement diversity and equity in the work that you do?
Well, I will try and put that in just a few sentences, although it could take a whole day series, a series. So implementing diversity and the work that I do has to do with the number one thing when it comes to injecting diversity in what I do. And I'm just going to speak to me, not necessarily as it relates to best practices, but based on my experience. The number one thing when it comes to incorporating diversity is if I don't know who you are to your core, it's going to be difficult for me to teach you. So because I need to know who you are, I need to know how you learn, I need to know where you come from, I need to know what you enjoy. In other words, I need to be someone that you can look to, want to be around, want to push, want to make inquiries with. Don't necessarily have to agree with me because I don't want you to agree with me, because I am not here to tell you things. I'm here to work with you and point you in a direction, but you have to be willing to walk that path. And so and that starts with knowing who you are, knowing your background, anything and everything I can do to build a relationship around you is the key to getting students to learn. And the same goes and it's not just for students, it's for my colleague next door. It's for the principal downstairs or over here. It's for the school counselor. It's for the nurse. It's for the parent who walks through the door. They're all connected. We can't separate them.
Okay. Now building upon that, how do you help students that maybe are having trouble finding who they are?
Yeah, that's such a tough one, especially now when we have identity is everything. Identity is everything. Who am I? Where do I fit in? So again, the way you help students understand that is to help them understand themselves, understand that they're an individual and what they think, what they believe, how they feel, whether they agree, whether they disagree is okay. Find mediums that empower them and give them voice, because once they have voice, that generates self-confidence, and that can lead to a self-identity, one that I may not agree with, as a matter of fact, and I make that clear. Or their friend may not agree with. This might mean making new friends, making new associations, but finding yourself first is the most important thing. Absolutely.
Beautifully said. Thank you. How and why did you decide to get involved in education?
Um, boy, that's you know, statistics say we change careers 7 times in our life on average. Okay, so when I was a child, when I first came here from Africa, I didn't speak very much English. I didn't know very much English, and so what does that mean? That means the most powerful people in your life, the most influential people in your life, when you come from one country to another, yes, you have the influence of your family, but the most influential people that create a huge impact on your life are going to be the teachers that you immediately connect with. So I was able to connect with some incredible teachers. I was also able to connect with some horrible teachers. I'm going to keep it 100. I'm going to keep it real. And so here's what that and those horrible teachers did for me. They made me realize that that I can change, that I have a responsibility to kids who are like me, kids who did not speak English. So, and here's what those great teachers did for me. They pushed me to be better. And I'm going to acknowledge Juanita Quick. Juanita Quick was a principal at Willard Elementary School, which is just up the hill from the Tacoma Dome. And Juanita Quick, you know, I felt every time I saw her, I thought she was like, man, that's the kid right there. I want to know that kid. I want to talk to that kid. I always felt like I was the only kid in the whole building every time I saw her, every time she talked to me. And hey, I need you to get in this program called Push Excel. I don't know if y'all know what Push Excel is, but Push Excel was a group where they taught you how to debate. They taught you how to debate. It was a debate group for elementary kids. And here I am, a kid who doesn't speak very much English, and she thought I should be in Push Excel. What do you think that did for my self-esteem? What do you think that did for me in terms of how I grew? So, and then of course there was another teacher who didn't put me in the Good Kids Club. That's what the name of the club was. So that message sends a lot. The Good Kids Club. Think if a teacher had a club called the Good Kids Club right now, would they even have a job right now? So those are the two things that I saw that said, hey, I want to work with children. I want to grow kids. All right. I could keep going, but I'll put it in the book.
Educators are definitely playing a critical role in
Absolutely.
society. Switching gears for a moment, you contributed to the book Principles Don't Walk on Water, They Walk Through It by Andre Mountain. What was that experience like? Why did you do it, and what did you learn from it?
Oh my gosh, first I have to say thank you, Lisa Rankin. How are you? When I see Lisa Rankin, everything stops, because she is one of the reasons I am even here. This is one of the people who put me on the map, who put me on the road to being who I am. And I will be forever grateful to you, Lisa Rankin. I think about you all the time, and I thank you, and I pay you homage right now. So
thank you for joining us, Lisa.
Yeah. So hey, you know, it's like hey, when she walks in, everything stops for me. I'm just gonna put it there.
I'm sorry for being tardy, but I am so elated. I'm so proud of you. When I saw that you were the speaker, I was trying to get registered and nothing went right with that. But Shauna sent me a quick little text and I was trying to get on here. So I said, let me just hit this button again and see if it worked this time, and it did. But let me just tell everyone who's watching, this student here, who's your speaker for tonight, has just gone to the moon and back. He's got 2 beautiful daughters, but when he was a student, he was working. I mean, he was doing it all. And look at how he's just been blessed, and he's just doing beyond measured. He has taken a UW Tacoma degree and soared with it. So, Ngoma, I am so proud of you. You have made UW Tacoma proud. You've made the city of Tacoma proud. You are just, I'm so proud. I feel like the mom. I'm just so proud of you. This is outstanding. So carry on. I'm sorry for all this major interruption, but Thank
Oh,
you
no,
for the
no, no.
accolades, but it's
No
all about
worries.
you tonight. So
No,
great
this
job.
is your work. This is your legacy, Rankin. This is part of your work, your legacy. Yeah.
Well,
Hey,
thank
I'm here.
you.
I'm here because of you. People like you. You had a big part of it. So, so a great segue.
Yeah, I'm
Andre,
gonna mute myself.
great segue. Andre Benito Mountain. So you can write that name down if you want to, and you can look it up. You can pull it up on another screen right now. Andre Benito Mountain. So Andre is from Georgia, okay? And he wrote the book, Principles Don't Walk on Water, They Walk Through It. So here's Andre's story. Andre and I both came to Tacoma at the same time as he came from Georgia as an assistant principal, and I came from Puyallup, teaching in Puyallup as assistant principal. And we first met at new admin orientation in Tacoma. You're like, okay, where do I fit in? Okay, I'm here, we met, that's where we first met, and we became friends. He was an assistant principal at one of the elementary schools. I was at a different elementary school. And so, listen, if you think about when people come into a room, you automatically look for someone who looks like you. I'm just gonna keep it real, okay? You automatically look for someone who you find some sort of comfort with. And then from then on, that you're with them for a while and you build your confidence that you already had, because you feel like you don't have it. And then you move through and you start to kind of grow and your confidence comes back. That was my guy, Andre Mountain. And so we would always sit down together. We would email each other. We would support each other. And he was working on a book. He started this thing. Every time we'd sit down, he would take these notes and he would come up with these isms and these principles. So we can say principles, but what we're talking about being a principal, and we're talking about principles of leadership. And so we would do these things, and he already had this idea going. And so he started working on a book. He said, "Hey, Ngoma, I'm working on a book called The Mountain Principles." I'm like, "That's fantastic," And so after some time, we would still meet over the year, because I've known him for about 6 years now. Actually, no, it was about 8 years. And so he said, "My book is done." So he published the book. And once he published that book, he went on another journey. Next thing I know, he's in Washington. He's on the cover of Washington Principal Magazine. I'm like, dude, what? So that increased his confidence, okay? And so then he said, "I'm gonna write another book," okay? So he writes another book. And I didn't collaborate with him, but I was his support system. He could bounce ideas off me and other people, other principals. We met with other principals. We met with other principals of color because we were seeing some things happening in the district, which was a very diverse district. And there are a lot of efforts made at the higher level to make the leadership look like the student population. However, within that, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of nepotism. Again, I'm not trying to put down Tacoma, but anytime the higher you move in an administrative ladder in terms of administrative leadership and management control, those things become more prevalent. They're seen but not spoken of unless they're in the back rooms and corners. So we were noticing elevation of a lot of folks who, in our judgment, you're like turning your head saying, "That's interesting. That surprises me." And so then those became part of the book. And the book was called The Brilliance Beneath. So it was another look into how education, there are things underneath education. There's a wave underneath education that exists. And it is brilliant, but then there's some other things there as well. So then he said, so because of this book, The Brilliance Beneath, he decided, I'm leaving Tacoma and I'm going back to Georgia because they will not promote me to a principal position. So he left Tacoma, an amazing African-American who brought his family all the way from Georgia to bring what he knows to Tacoma. And he went there and he wrote another book. And by the way, he is now the principal of Marbit Traditional School in Georgia, Andre Benito. And so he's a principal there. He's been a principal there for years. And he wrote this book, Principals Don't Walk on Water. He said, hey, Ngoma, I want you to write my foreword. I'm like, what? He's like, look, you've been with me on this journey. You've seen my journey. You're a part of the journey. You need to be writing your own book, but I want you to write my foreword. So I thought about it for about 3 seconds. So then I wrote the foreword. And basically what it's about all the things that we've talked about up to this point. It's about diversity. It's about equity. It's about types of leadership. It's about accountability, not just for leaders, but accountability for parents, accountability for administration. There's so much to say about that book, but I encourage you to go read it. Hopefully he's watching right now. I sent him, he's a busy guy. I said, hey, I'm going to be bragging about you tonight. So here's the link. If you can see it, see it. Anyway, so that's what the book is about. And he keeps writing books and doing amazing things. And I am on his bandwagon, and I'm on your trail, Andre. I'm coming. So make sure that you hitch up your wagon so you can pull me with you. So yes, that's Andre Benito Mountain, the Principals Don't Walk on Water. Great book.
Amazing. Now, you talked about principles versus principles. Is there a specific principle that resonates with you the most that you had discussed?
Oh, wow. That's a great follow-up question. I think the principle that resonates with me the most is that I just think about Simon Sinek. If you guys don't, everybody here should know who Simon Sinek is. You start with why. Every single situation that you go into, it doesn't matter if it's a staff meeting. It doesn't matter if it's a parent meeting. It doesn't matter if it's a meeting with a student. What is the why behind that, okay? And the why is rooted in your values. All right, so you have to carry that bag with you in every conversation, in every space. What is your why? What are your values? And so, but the other thing is, it's not about you. It's not about you, and it never will be. And if you come into everything knowing that it's not about you and what's the why here, you're gonna be all right, and you're gonna garner credibility everywhere you go. So that's the main principle. What's your why? Okay, what is your why? And what are your values as they relate to everything that you do?
Thank you.
Yeah.
What was your most significant learning experience you had as a University of Washington Tacoma student?
Woo-wee. I'll preface that by saying when we go to college when we're 18, getting I'll preface that by saying when we go to college, coming out of high school, we start learning all kinds of new things, and there is a sense of narcissism there that it's about me. I'm into this, I'm into that, I'm into this, I'm into that. I'm gonna join a fraternity. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go to this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna party. I'm gonna meet friends. I'm gonna do this. So it's about I'm free. Okay. All right. Now, if those things don't work out and you go back at 25, 26, that's not it anymore. Okay. You are coming there and you have been humbled by life. Life has humbled you. And you have to, now you are making the decision to get up. You are making the decision to go to work. You are making the decision to, if you have kids, make sure your kids are where they need to be. You are making the decision to, where are you going to study? So the biggest thing I also learned also with my colleagues there is that's where it's not about you. That's where I learned that. It's not about you. Okay. Everything you're doing, you think you're doing, I want to get this job. I want to get this. I want to do that. I want to finally make money. I want to do this, but it's not about you. When you get in those classrooms, you really learn who you are. You don't learn who you are when you're 18, 19, and 20. No, you don't learn who you are. You know where things are at, but you don't know who you are. You learn new places. You might discover a few things, but you don't know who you are. You get into an academic environment with people who are 25 and up, you're going to find out who you are. And you quickly know that it's not about you. So that's where it's not about me came from. Okay, that's the biggest thing that I learned from University of Washington. It is not about me. Oh, and by the way, you are a pebble of sand in this world. And it doesn't matter how much noise you make, you are still a pebble of sand. So you have to learn how to make connections. You need to learn how to network. You need to learn to put yourself around people who are going in the direction you're going. Put yourself around people who are where you want to be. Get on that road, no matter what it takes. That's my biggest lesson that I learned from University of Washington, Tacoma. And I use it every single day.
It's a great lesson, Ngoma. Thank you. You have already answered this question, so I'm going to word it a little bit differently.
Sure.
Of all the people that have impacted you in your life and the experiences you had with them, is there one specific moment that you could point out that really changed things for you?
Oh boy, that's tough. So many people on your journey. So there's several, but this one's personal for me, and it's hard for me to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it because I was going to say, it was Willie Stewart giving me a job finally with Tacoma School District after me going in that office 4 or 5 times every single day for 4 or 5 days and just sitting there, not leaving until I get an answer every day, not leaving until I get an answer. So I can't attribute that to someone. I can give them credit for finally recognizing me and giving me a shot, but I'm the one who sat there every day, okay? So who's the person that got me to go sit there every day? Well, I'm gonna tell you who that is. That's my dad, Moses Howard and Immaculate Howard. They're the ones who got me to sit there every day. I remember my dad said, you gotta be willing to offend people to get what you need. Okay, I didn't say you had to be, you hurt anybody. You might have to hurt some feelings to get what you need. And you can't take no for an answer. Because every time I tried to tell them no, it didn't go so good. So I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I was a senior in high school. I think I told you a little bit about this before. And they were giving out awards. Those of you who were here before, the high school gives out awards near the end of the year. They have an assembly. They invite all the parents, all the kids. The auditorium is full. Imagine an auditorium full of hundreds of people. And I say, oh, Dad, Mom, they're giving out awards at Lincoln, and I'm getting an award. I didn't know what award I was getting, but I thought I was getting something good. Now, my mom's a teacher. My dad's a former college dean at Hines Community College in Mississippi. Okay, my dad is an administrator at Seattle Central Community College. Okay, and he and my mom come into Lincoln High School thinking that their child is going to get an award. Okay, it's a moment of pride. Okay, I don't even remember what the award was. It was something trivial, something ridiculous, something you wouldn't even find in a yearbook. It was arbitrary. It was the equivalent of kindest person in junior high in the yearbook. It was kind of like that. Here I am thinking I'm getting something for academics, and I finally, mom and dad. And it was the most embarrassing moment for my parents, and that was mortifying to me. And even just talking about it right now, it hurts, because disappointing your parents is the worst feeling a person can have. So that was that was it for me. And did it send me on the right path? No, it didn't send me on the right path. It sent me the opposite direction. But eventually I came around. Eventually I came around and got my bearings. So yeah, thanks a lot, Jason, for bringing that up.
Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it.
I'm kidding. But yes, yeah, go ahead, please.
If you could go back in time and do it all over, what would you do differently?
That's a hard one, because some of the things I've done led me to meet people in this meeting. So if I would have changed some of those things, I wouldn't be here. I know I'd be somewhere else. So I think something that I would have done differently. There was a point to where there's a point in your life sometimes where you're beat up so much by the circumstances of life, you want to give up. And you fall down, but sometimes you stay on the ground too long. You don't get up soon enough. You can get up, but you got to get up sooner.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let life knock you down, and then you wallow in that pain too long, because then it can become very comfortable. And you have to get up, and getting up is the hardest thing to do. You just have to get up.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing I would do different is I would have got up sooner. That's what I would do, because you're going to get knocked down, but you got to keep getting up.
Is there somebody that helped you get up while you were down?
Yeah, it was she was a teacher. I was a para, and she was a teacher. And I was on my journey already, but I was down. And she was a teacher, and I'll be honest, she asked me out on a date. And just the fact that she asked me out on a date, that just goes to show where my esteem was. Even though I was in school, just the fact that she asked me out on a date, a teacher thinks this of me, which translates to I'm not thinking this enough of myself. So that date led to a 2-year, 3-year relationship, to where everything I did in school, she'd be over my shoulder saying, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, that looks good. Oh, no, no, you can't turn that in. No, no, you need to do that again. You're not turning that in. You're better than that." Okay, we all need somebody like that in our life. Even though they might be in our life for just a couple of years, they might be in that chapter, but we all need that chapter. We all need that person in our chapter of our life, who helps us get to the next page. And I'll never forget her for that. Julie Jacobson. She was an incredible person. Yeah.
And people come into our life for a reason, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's still an incredible person, but you know, at that time, she's just one. There are many. I'm just being as honest as I can. So if you're out there and you're watching and you're like, well, what about me? Well, it wasn't your turn yet. So just, it wasn't your chapter. You'll get your chapter. Yeah.
How did your experience at the University of Washington, Tacoma influence your career pursuits after you graduated?
Okay, so that one is easy. I remember I'd always find some sort of reason to go into Lisa's office, go back there, you get to go behind the receptionist, I always had this idea of access. I always wanted access. So I would find a reason to get behind the counter and go see the person in charge back there. Okay. Remember earlier, I told you got to get with people who are where you want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said that earlier. So, which means that you have to practice getting where you want to be. What does that look like? What does it look like for me to be back there where the decision makers are, to be in their presence? And when I'm back there, what am I picking from their brain? What habits am I seeing that they're doing that I can adopt and implement wherever, because every habit you pick up, you still have to sharpen that habit. Okay, so I'd always find a way to get back there where Lisa is. And was it Jason Smith, Lisa? And you're muted. I'm sorry.
Looked like she nodded her head, yes.
Yeah, and then so the two of them, I always go back there looking to just have a conversation with them. And so Lisa told me, hey, you need to join this club. You need to join that. You need to join that.
Excuse me, it was Steve Smith.
Steve Smith, excuse me. Jason Smith was a principal of Puyallup High School. I also looked up to another brother who did a lot of good things in Puyallup. So Steve Smith and Lisa, I'd always go back there and find a reason to talk to them. And then there's also Tony, who was the director of
Financial aid.
Tony, I can't remember Tony's last name, but
Myers.
Tony Myers, yeah, always went back there, talked to Tony, talked to Lisa, talked to Steve. And so just spend time in there, just absorb their leadership and their skills and things like that. And whenever they say you need to go do this, it might take me a while to do it, but eventually I would do it. Okay, just listening to people who are in those environments and following, because once you get on that path that they set you on, you find yourself, you find your own identity, you find out who you are, and then you take some of those skills that you're picking up in the university. Okay, Michael Colton, man, that guy would always be pushing me. That guy would always be pushing me, always challenging everything you say in class, always challenging you. Oh, is that right? Tell me more. Why is that? Well, it's in the book. Well, no, yeah, it's in the book, but tell me why. So always challenging. So those people that would just always mold you, and they just press and press and press and press and mold you. So I could give a lot of credit, but I could go down the line. Anthony DaCosta, he annoyed me so much, but that man is so incredible. He knows everything. He knew everything. You could never, whatever point you give, you just trying to get some love. He'd be like, nope. Give you counterpoint. Bring me something else, Ngoma. Bring me something else. Okay, that's a small point. Bring me something else. So things like that. I'd encourage people, always find people who are where you want to be and spend time with them, absorb their knowledge.
What would you say to students or graduates more specifically who are nervous about not working specifically in their field of study?
That's okay. It's okay. Statistics say you change your job over your lifetime 7 times. It's probably more than that now with the advent of technology and entrepreneurship that is available through technology, all the technology mediums. Okay, so that's okay. going into your field of study right away is not going into your field of study right away. It's okay. There are many folks who did that, who have done that, have been very successful. And I'm not saying don't do it, because if you're on the path, go there. But if life comes and says, boom, I'm knocking you down and you're going to have to do something else, you're going to have to take another path. Take that path. That path offers you something. Bartending offered me the opportunity to be able to talk to anybody about anything. And because I had to talk to people, what can I get for you?
Mm-hmm.
And then they always want to tell me their problems. And so waiting tables, being a bouncer. I was a bouncer. Being a bouncer taught me something. And all of this while I'm maneuvering my way through school, through my path, okay? Working at the Pierce County Courthouse, that taught me something. Working at the Pierce County Auditor's Office in the Elections Department. Boy, that would have been some place to work this year. But that taught me something. And look, and it still became something that I could pull and use as I go on my journey. And my journey's not done. Your journey's not done. Your journey does not stop. That's the thing that people, oh, I've made it, I've arrived, I'm this, I've made it. No, you haven't. That's the beginning of another journey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yes.
Start of a new chapter. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one's a little bit more of a fun question. If you were to compare your work environment to a television show, which one would it be?
Well, it's not Friends. It's not Friends. I was talking to my sister about this, and so I would say listen, I'm just going to be honest. The older folks are going to understand this, and the younger folks will understand it. So it's a combination of the Jeffersons and Blackish. Okay. So those of you who used to know the Jeffersons, who've seen the Jeffersons, the theme song to the Jeffersons is "I'm moving on up to the east side to a deluxe apartment in the sky." Okay, and there's more to it. So now I talked to you guys earlier about my journey and then how you believe that you made it. You believe that you made it, but when you get where you think you're going, it's not what you thought. And it's a new journey where Blackish is about, so Blackish, so that's about a family. It's an affluent family that in the suburbs of California. And the father believes that his kids, he fears that his kids aren't have become too assimilated to their white surroundings. And then he fights for them to retain their culture. And so it goes through their story as they deal, and at one point they move to the South. We're going to get some culture. We're going to move to the South, where they start to experience things like racism, police brutality, homophobia, the election of Donald Trump. This is all has to do with the show, as well as the effects on the Black community. So when I say it's a combination of the Jeffersons and Blackish, hey, I thought I was moving on up to the east side when I became principal. I thought I had arrived. I made it. I got my suit and tie. I got my glasses. I got my salary, which puts me in a higher percentage. And then I have a family, and then my kids. I'm here in a community where no one in the community looks like my kids, and I'm afraid that they're losing touch with their culture. So I'm trying to balance what that's going to be like, while trying to make sure that I understand that the East Side isn't all it's cracked up to be. Sometimes moving on up to the East Side, getting where you're going is just fine where you were. So Blackish and the Jeffersons, oh my gosh. And when I said it's not Friends, that was a joke, but it was also serious. Okay.
Sure. I'm definitely going to have to add those to my list.
Watch them, they're great. Watch one episode on the Jeffersons on YouTube. You'll be like, oh, I see what Ngoma was talking about.
All right. That was my last question, Ngoma.
Yeah.
It has been such an honor to be here with you and interview you. With that, we are going to open up for question and answer. If you do have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Say your name and where you're from, or feel free to unmute yourself and present your question.
And real quick, I really wanted to say one more thing. I did not mention these two people's names. So the first person is Dale Platt. He was a wrestling coach he was a social studies teacher and basketball coach at Galt Junior High in 1983 when I was there. And my brothers and I couldn't play sports because we came from Africa, so we didn't meet the school district's athletic requirements because of something to do with our paperwork and our age and things like that. And he really advocated for that for us. And fantastic guy. And another person is Belinda Louis from the School of Education, University of Washington, Tacoma. When I was an admin in Tacoma, she became one of the people that I looked to, and everything that she was teaching in the Tacoma School District, I was in the front row, because if it's got UW Tacoma next to it, I'm going. And they've got something to teach me. It doesn't matter how long it's been since I've been there. So Belinda Louis, hey! So absolutely, yeah, go ahead. So just wanted to recognize those folks.
I don't see any questions in the chat yet.
Okay.
Well, I have I unmuted myself. I have a question. Can I ask the question?
Of course,
Okay.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. And I may have missed this at the very beginning, and you may have touched on this, Ngoma. What are your long range goals? Because you're still moving on up. Do you plan to stay in Tacoma area for the most part, or the South Puget Sound region, or do you plan to eventually relocate?
My goal is to stay in the South Puget Sound region because I have 3 children. I have a son who's 27, and then I have a daughter who's 13. Oh my gosh. And then I have a 10-year-old daughter as well. So when my 10-year-old heads off to an upper institution, then I will consider relocating somewhere. Probably, honestly, probably to Africa. Just I want to be. Listen, that's my home. That's where I'm from, and I have to give back something. I'm not who I. That's my homeland. I have to go back and give back something. And so, how maybe I can do that in the summertime. Maybe I can do. I have to figure out what that's going to look like. But while my children are here, I don't plan on relocating. But I do have a plan. It is in the cards for me. My goal is to do speaking like this at academic forums around the country that have to do with equity, inclusion, that have to do with racism, anti-racism. What does that look like? How do we keep addressing that in our forever changing environment? What are the constants that existed back then that still exist and are prevalent today? And what is the language around that? For example, the language used to be colorblind, used to be something that was acceptable. That's not acceptable anymore. Colorblind, we can't be colorblind. So we're doing a lot of work with that right now in our school, and hopefully I want to spread that through the district with my Caucasian and Latino and brothers and sisters out there that are educators and administrators. I want to make sure we have that conversation because there's a lot of work to be done. Like I said before, sometimes leaving where you're at, thinking you're going somewhere to do something, and you can do that work where you are. So that's my plan. Yes.
Well, I just want to say, I know Africa is your homeland, But when you get ready to go, you know, I have contacts, and I have a friend who has some businesses in Africa that would be very beneficial to you, even though that's your home. But they've got some very influential businesses, and
Yeah.
just a great contact for you.
Yeah,
So
that
get with me.
continent is blowing up. You are right about that. Thank
Yes.
you. I will
So I've got some
definitely,
great.
I'll definitely
Yeah.
reach out. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Lisa.
Mhm.
And Ngoma, we have a question from Leslie in the chat. They ask, what do you see as the greatest challenges in public education at this unique time in our history?
So I think the greatest challenge in public education is I'm going to give this to you from two lenses. I'm going to give it to you from different lenses: the parent lens, the teacher lens, and the admin lens. And the greatest challenge to public education is the decision makers. And what do I mean by that? I mean the school board. Okay. One of the reasons why I got into administration was because I wanted to have a seat at the table. Remember, there's been a reoccurring theme here about access, right? Been a reoccurring theme, but I wanted to have a seat at the table because I didn't agree with what was going on. And I wanted to maybe see if I could influence a little bit of that. And then, but I have to know more about what's going on where I am in my building, in my community, before I can even go there thinking that I'm going to change something or someone. So our school boards are people with wonderful intent and wonderful commitment to education. And they listen as best they can, but the whole politics of education is horrible. I think that we really need to address inclusivity. And what I mean inclusivity, we've got to get more people, and I need this to come, I'm gonna say this, I'm just gonna say it, but I don't want it to come out wrong. We've got to get more people in school buildings that look like, that are a close to even representation of who we're teaching. Until we start addressing the gaps in access, we can't address the gaps, the academic gaps. We can put Band-Aids on those, but we need to have more people in there. So to all my Asian American, Latinos, Russian, Black, white, go where there is not enough of you. And I don't just mean that in education, but in your jobs and in your careers, because those are the places where you influence the public. Go where there's not enough of you. Don't go where everybody looks like you. You're not going to learn anything. You're going to be comfortable is what you're going to be. Mm-hmm. But we have to be willing to make a commitment to have more people, and especially in our education system, in our schools, okay? I can't be the only Black man in the building of 600 people, 600 kids. I can't be with no Hispanics, no Asian. You can't just say, okay, we've got all white folks and one Black guy, that we're good. No, we're not, okay? And does that sound like I have an agenda? Absolutely, I have an agenda. I absolutely have an agenda, because that's my why. Because if we want to make these changes, we have to make these changes outside of just the policy level. We have to make it a visual change where I walk in the building and kids are like, oh, that guy looks like me and he's somebody who can teach me something. I shouldn't have to walk into a school, a junior high school in a community where the kids are like, what's this guy doing here? What's he doing here? Why is there a Black guy here? I shouldn't have to do that. That's the reality. I'm not blaming anyone. But it is everyone's duty, right down to a parent, a person going into college, a person going into education, go where the hard work is. Go where the hard work is, because that will solidify your why. And you will realize that you'll come to some new realizations. And man, I admire all of you for everything you're doing. Just the fact that you're even here listening to me means that you are on a path. Okay? Go where the hard work is. Go where no one else wants to go. At least if not to see why nobody else wants to go there. Because that place might just need you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shauna, do we have time for that last question in the chat?
Just that last question, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up.
Okay. From Eric, they ask, Foss Falcon alum and Black man new to education.
Hey,
How did you build a network of support and find mentors?
All right. So I built a network of support and find mentors with people like Lysandra Ness, who's the principal at Foss High School, who I also attended upper education with. So what you do is you go out there and you meet people. So for example, if I walk into the Foss High School gym, I will walk up to the person that looks like they're in charge, and I will introduce myself. I will introduce not just to the person that looks like they're in charge. I will walk up to the head of security and say, hey, what's up? I'm so-and-so. This is me. This is what I do. How are you doing? You get to know. You walk up to the principal, you get to know. You walk up, you say hello to a parent. So see what's gonna happen is students, staff, parents, who's that guy talking to who's that guy talking to security? Who's that guy talking to the principal? Who's that guy talking to a coach? Who's that guy high-fiving students in the stands? Who's that guy? And then when they catch your eye, you say hi to them. And hey, I'm so-and-so. Hey, I teach here in a different school. I'm just here to support the kids. Who are you? What do you do? What connections do you have? Tell me about yourself. Get to know people. Okay, we live in a society where, hey, you walk up in a place, yeah, I'm too cool. Look at me, look. I'm too cool. You're trying to keep it cool. What's cool is a person that, I guarantee you what's cool is a person that knows everybody. I don't want to say who is somebody because everybody's somebody. But cool is a person who knows people who are people of influence. And that's what you do. You find the people of influence, whether they want to talk to you or not. You go and make yourself known to them. You find out who they are. You find out what drives them. You find out, well, what committees are they on? What can you volunteer for that you have time for? What can you do? You pick their brain. Hey, here's my email. Something happens, send me an email, invite me. I just want to come hang out, see what's going on. Hey, you having a festival? Invite me. I want to come see what's going on. Oh, and by the way, can I bring so-and-so with me? Because they seem like they'd be just right for what you guys are doing here. So that's what you do. You go out and you network. There's a school board meeting, go to a school board meeting, ask a question. Hey, my name's Ngoma Howard. I'm a member of the community here. I went to such and such high school. Hey, I remember you from this and this and this. You're doing great work. Here's my question. And make it a poignant question. Make it a question that they don't hear all the time. And you don't have to like the answer. But the fact that you ask a question they don't hear all the time, a question they may not even want to hear, they're going to remember you. And then when you come back a few months later, ask another question, acknowledge first, but ask a question. Acknowledge first because people want to be appreciated for the work that they put in. But then ask a question. Just like Dr. Anthony DaCosta, hey, I need more. Yeah, this is okay, but I need more. So you keep asking, you keep meeting. Anytime there's a community event that involves you or that you're interested in, you show up, volunteer, whatever it takes. That's what you do.
Thank you, Ngoma. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I will now turn it over to Shauna.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jason, for helping us today and interviewing. And thank you, Ngoma. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. It was good to see many. It's quite a few people that I haven't seen in a while. Before we go, there are a couple things I want you to look out for. We have Tacoma Husky Landing platform, which is live. If you haven't joined that platform, you'll want to go check into it. There's a lot of opportunity to mentor students there, to connect with other alumni, to do some career pursuits, build a network there with faculty, staff, students, and alumni. So I'm going to put that link in the chat here. I just put it there for you. And then join us again for our next Alumni Speaker Series, which will be on February 11th, which is a Thursday evening. We will have, it'll be a little bit different because we have Valentine's Day week coming up that week. So we'll be doing something fun. We'll have a twist where we have UW Tacoma and Husky alumni couples. We'll have some faculty and staff couples, and it'll be something that's really interesting. So please stay tuned for that. Look in your alumni newsletter. Go to our event page, the alumni speaker event page. Information will be on there, so that'll be coming.